How's your espresso?
Dispressing. All right. Should we begin on that note?
Yeah.
My espresso is expressing itself really deeply because I have a lack of sleep, but it's okay because we're starting the episode.
And the episode is?
You know what? What is it? I want you to say it.
You want me to say it?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, on today's Juicy Rush episode, we are going to be talking about anime.
Is that the is that the right sound?
I mean, if you were going for Crying Baby, then you nailed it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going for.
But yeah, we'll be talking about anime today, and I guess we got kind of like a wide range of how we're going to be approaching it. But yeah, so I guess we'll. What did you want to dive in first? You have kind of like a little plan for this topic.
I have a master plan.
The master plan.
The master plan. For all the listeners out there, we'll try something a bit new this episode. The last ones have been a bit more about, you know, how to do this, how to do that, what we wish we knew, kind of things. Mm-hmm. This one will be a bit more about what we're interested in, right, Nick? It'll be like a little more exploring our interests as artists and diving into some things we learned through anime.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And definitely taking kind of a lens to it of how you can kind of use the things that you love and apply to your work, to your career in some ways and learn from it. So exactly. Yeah, it's going to be a fun topic to talk about.
Definitely. So yeah, we can jump in. We'll talk a bit about, you know, our relationship to anime, how we got into it, and also why it can matter to you. Like how would anime and understanding anime improve you as an artist?
Yeah.
So yeah, how did you get into anime, Nick?
How did I get into it? I mean, I got into it pretty early on as a kid. I think most people here are probably familiar, at least watching, what Dragon Ball is. So that was like, yeah.
What's that?
What's Dragon Ball? I don't know. It's only like one of the most influential pieces of media.
Very much so.
It's huge, honestly. It was, I mean, that affected a lot of people, though. At least in my generation, that was a pretty impactful show. So definitely one of the most influential ones for me. What about you?
I got into anime similar to you. I got into Dragon Ball when I was 14.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say I got into anime until like maybe 3-4 years ago.
3-4 years?
Because you told me I should.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been, I've been playing catch up.
Yeah.
I've been a little, it's weird because I always, maybe this is something people can relate to. If you're not into anime, you tend to view it as, oh, it's a bit weird. It's like, you know, it's like a weird culture that you're not really accustomed to, especially like the mannerisms, the way the characters express themselves versus in Western media. So I was a bit like, it's a bit weird. Like, I'm not sure I would be comfortable being the type of person to watch that. I know it's a bit judgmental, but I'll be honest, that's just what I thought at the time. But it turns out that there's a plethora of amazing like art and animation and I come to really love the storytelling actually the most.
Yeah.
It's kind of revived the kid in me that loves cartoons. I'm like, I know this sounds weird, but I can finally watch cartoons again. Yeah. So
I got into it. Watching cartoons.
Sorry?
I don't think I ever stopped watching cartoons.
I think you're healthier than me. But yeah, so like 3-4 years ago, you told me to watch Demonslayer, and I was just kind of reluctant, but I was like, yeah, fine, I'll watch an episode.
Great gateway.
And holy shit.
Yeah, it's really good. Demonslayer is pretty insane. And visually it's something else.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I don't want to go too in yet on our backstory because I know we wanted to talk more about that towards the end. But why, I guess, is it important that we look at other mediums? Because there's like, you know, there's not just anime. There's, you know, you can look at Western animation. There's mangas, comic books. There's, you know, tons of different stuff out there, right? But why is it important that even though anime is not necessarily concept art or illustration, why is it important for us to look at other stuff? Like, and like, why would you say that it's important for us to look at things that are outside our, I guess, our circle of what we do?
Yeah, like things like anime, other kind of like, I would say they're like bubbles of a certain culture that's made something. It's like there's genres of different, let's say TV shows, there's genres of different, and in this case, it's a specific, I guess, animated TV show that lives with, like, I guess the heart of it would be in Japan.
Yeah.
So I think it's really important because, first of all, it's influenced a ton of stuff that you like that you don't even realize. So as a designer, let's say, because most of you are concept artists or aspiring concept artists or illustrators listening, it helps to know like how the things you like were shaped by, in this case, anime, but also other things. So yeah, it's like, it helps to know the history, I would say. That's one thing. And also it shows you different perspectives. Like I would have never, like, we can obviously go a little more in depth later into the podcast on how it shaped me, but I would have never guessed how expressive you can make a character. And obviously different people do it different ways, but I never knew you could do it like that. And in that case, it's like anime, like the way anime expresses their characters.
Yeah.
I'm like, damn, like I'm glad that I got exposed to that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like
really
the facial
enrich things.
expressions, the motions, like the way they do either attacks or just like everyday movements, it's like really, there's a lot of energy behind it. And like we talk about those things, like we do learn about it when we think gesture and dynamic posing. But like that tends to be something that's like at the center of looking at animation, right? Because it's something that you can't really would do without. Like in concept art, like, yeah, it's important to know dynamic posing and gesture, but you can get away with not being the best at it, right? Because 100%. A lot of your poses are very static. They're very like front on or like T poses and back views. Like you're not doing a lot of super like crazy poses and stuff like that. But I don't think you can really get away with not knowing gesture and dynamic posing in animation. I mean, you need to be able to make these movements work in 3D space. They need to be moving frame by frame. So these are people that really like have mastered some skills that maybe we don't spend enough time in as much because we're focusing maybe on different skills for concept art. So there's so much to like take from that and see how like people who have mastered certain skills apply it to their work. Like there's so much influence to kind of take from that.
100%.
So yeah, so it's super important to be looking at other mediums. We're talking about one medium at the moment, but there's so many mediums out there to be looking at and talking about. Because again, so much to learn. Just I guess a good parallel to that would be studying master painters. Master painters aren't necessarily concept artists. That's not what they're doing, but yet we study them and we learn so much from them because they're really good at what they do.
Yeah, you want to study from the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Or what you think is the best. Exactly. One thing I like about what you just said is, it's one thing to be like, I'll give you an example. If you, let's say, study gesture, you could easily go on YouTube, learn some gesture, or you could follow a certain method. Like in my case, I learned a lot of anatomy, and I'm still learning through like Andrew Loomis or guys like that. They'll have like a whole way they do it. But what's nice about anime or other mediums, in fact, it's you can learn different perspectives on it. So I think I would be worse off if I haven't been exposed to anime, because I'm like, they showed me different things about posing, different things about shape design, all that kind of stuff that I think leveled me up as a concept artist or an for me, it's more of an illustrator. I don't do character concept artists, but for me as an illustrator, because now I can see it through the lens of someone who maybe is drawing anime or animates anime, and not only through one lens. So it's like you get to add or combine lenses by studying different material.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And was there like a moment for you? So like, we can kind of imagine you're watching Demonslayer and you haven't watched anime in a while. Was there like a scene for you, if you can remember from the show, that you went like, oh shit, this is like,
yeah,
I haven't seen this, like, but what would be that scene out of curiosity that kind of like made it click for you? Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of you've watched Demon Slayer, but if you haven't, just try to picture in your head, picture like a samurai like person with like a really, really sick outfit, like really cool like beautiful graphics and like I don't know what you describe them, patterns on their whatever it's called. I don't even know.
Kimono, I think?
Come on, yeah.
Maybe.
You need to educate me on that.
Well, somebody should correct me
like
because
we don't
I'm
know
wrong.
the terminology. We're just average Canadians enjoying foreign art.
Yeah.
But just picture that. Picture like someone wearing that sort of attire, and then the most like spectacular 2D effects that are trailing their swords as they fight. Like for me, that whenever I think of Demonslayer, I'm just like, man, they really pulled that off, like in an insane fashion. Like the way they mixed an attack and found creative ways to put such a graphic and heavy line work based effect. Like it's very opaque. It's very like just thick, like filled in sort of tones. It's not very smooth or gradated. It's very graphic, and they make it work so well with the more rendered backgrounds or the treatment of their characters. So that in itself is insane. Just how they marry that with the motions of their attacks. That stood out for me like crazy.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think it stood out for me as well when I was watching it. And you brought up something, the kind of effects when they're kind of doing attacks. And that's one thing that I've noticed that I tend to reference a lot. If ever I'm looking to do some sort of like effects of like an attack or an explosion or something. Usually one of my number one go-tos is anime, because the shapes they use for like those explosions and seeing it move frame by frame, or like, I don't know if you're watching Gundams and seeing like the lasers go off and the missiles and the trail of smoke, the shapes they do for those, like they're really cool. They're so gestural. The shapes are really nice. And it's like, that tends to be one of my go-to references. I like, obviously you look at real life as well. You want to get a little bit of everything, but to see the way they stylized that real life information and like really pressed and like pulled it and all that, they do it really well, like in animation. So
extremely well.
It tends to be one of my go-to for looking at references for stuff like that, because it's definitely changed the way I kind of approach that.
Yeah, definitely. It's like, why look at just like normal smoke, real life smoke, when you can look at like someone who drew smoke like a lightning bolt. It's like it's just so cool, like how many ways you can interpret something like smoke. It's amazing.
It's crazy. Yeah, it's really, really cool.
What do you think about because this is something that a lot of people can think is a bad thing, but what do you think about artists who get into art by starting to draw, let's say Goku or an anime character or anime in general?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you have people telling you it's not a good thing, or like they're judging you because you're drawing anime or drawing Goku or whatever you're drawing, I mean, I think like one, that's a little bit ignorant to be saying stuff like that. Like if you're drawing and it makes you happy, regardless of what you want to do as a career, I think that's a net win. Like if you're enjoying the product, the win-win for you. Like draw whatever you want. Like if you just want to draw pebbles, like I'm cool with that
100%.
too. It doesn't It doesn't matter what you're drawing. But yeah, if you're drawing like,
but let's say they want to take it a step further, but that's their background. Like what would you say? What would you say to them? What do you think about that? I mean, it is a common thing. That's why I'm bringing it up. Like,
a lot of people do get inspired by anime and they start there. But I think like the fact that you're drawing and you're studying other people who are really good, like in the sense like you talk about Dragon Ball, like if you're looking at Akira Toriyama's stuff, like he's really good. Like, I mean, you're still studying from somebody who's really amazing at art. Like, it's not like you're studying from somebody who's never drawn before. Like you're looking at the Dragon Ball designs, like he was a good designer. He has like, I love the vehicle designs he does. And, and again, I grew up on Dragon Ball. I love that stuff. And even his Dragon Quest stuff and all that. So if you're like drawing those designs, like you're obviously you're extrapolating from that artist and learning from them. And if that's what gets you up in the morning to like draw and be really passionate about it, that's a great place to start with, right? Like it's just, we can look into fundamentals and all those other things, maybe a little bit later, right? Like find that passion, find that fire first. And then, then you're like, okay, I want to take it a step further. I'm struggling, like really building there. I don't really understand anatomy. I'm kind of just copying at this point. And then maybe you want to take it further and you get better at anatomy because you like doing characters and you want to learn how to do the folds. So you try to learn about that.
That's where people are a lot. They'll, usually like this is at least for me, like I knew a lot of people that started drawing anime in high school and stuff like that. and then they want to take their art further.
Mhm.
And I'm assuming a lot of people listening right now
Mhm.
do want to do that. Like, what would you tell them? Because I have a bunch of things I'd say. Obviously, it's a great thing that you have a passion for it. I think you nailed that. Like, I don't think there's something inherently wrong about, oh, I like to do art, but I just do anime stuff. There's a lot of opportunities actually from that.
Yeah.
I guess what I could say about that is, like I would say, if you love something, then hold it dear. Like, especially if you like drawing like anime, and I drew big muscular dudes too, like Dragon Ball Z stuff as well. Maybe not as much as other people I knew, but it could be your strength. So you can take that. But I would say there is, some cons to, if you want to take it further, how to evolve from, let's say, doing a lot of fan art, because that is one of the things I see that can be a limitation on artists if they want to, especially make a living or find a way to expand into another field or something like that, is how to not be binded by anime and actually have anime serve you. So if you want to do other things, you can too.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah. So I think you touched on a good topic there, fan art. So like, before I kind of explain it, like, doing fan art is a career option. Like, people make a living doing that. There's people that have full on Patreons where all they do is mostly do fan art. They do commissions of people, like, of like characters that people like. And there's people that even like sell like posters at like cons and stuff like that. And they make a living off of that. So like, if you love to draw fan art, like, and it's all you really want to do, there's an avenue for that and like a career path for that. The thing is that you don't want to just be, like, I guess, mindlessly just drawing anime. If you really want to take it as a career path, then, like anything else, fundamentals matter. Like learning, how to draw, learning perspective, learning anatomy. And the reason why it matters is that if your foundation is stronger, then you have more freedom to draw and you can really make these designs your own. Like, if you look at people who do fan art, they're not just copying the designs, right? They're obviously, the design's already made. Like, if you're drawing Goku, but like the piece is their own. They're doing their own storytelling. They stylize it their own way. They have their kind of own look.
How would you get your own look too? Because that is a big thing that people talk about.
Oh, I don't even know how to get my own look yet. I still have to figure out what that looks like. But I mean, usually, like, I've heard a few teachers explain it to me and I kind of agree with them, but it's like, usually your style is a culmination of like all your influences. So the artists you like to look at, your foundation and everything like that. So it's like, early on, I wouldn't really worry about style, because your style won't be there, right? You're learning the foundation, you're learning the fundamentals. Like, that's not really the purpose at that moment. Once you get better, your style is going to start to show, because the things you love are going to be more apparent, and all your influences are going to start just like mixing in like a slow cooker, right? And then that's going to start looking, and the more you draw and the more you get influenced, that style's going to evolve over time. It doesn't just stay stagnant as one thing. So to take it that step further, you have the love of something, but now you got to like also have the foundation and the skills to back it up, and
also
and
a bit
really
of
make
business
something your
sense.
own.
Like, if you want to make money, it's you're mentioning doing commissions. I know some people also they might do other stuff. Like, there's also not safe for work stuff you could do too. Cons, like selling prints. You can build a following on your specific way, and this is cool. Like, if you have a certain way you like to depict characters, you can build a really cool following with that. We're not as maybe knowledgeable of how to do that, because that's not what we do, but you've told me some pretty cool stories, I think, about that.
Yeah, like, I've had friends that have done that, done cons, that do commissions. So like, it's definitely an avenue you can take, but like Sean said, these are not avenues that we've taken. So, we know them at a very surface level. So obviously, I'd encourage you, if you're really interested in doing fan art, doing the Patreon route, doing like the commission route on, like, cause I know a lot of people use Twitter for commissions at the moment, or like doing cons, like reach out to somebody who does that. Like, don't reach out to me or to Sean. Like, it'll be like, how do I sell my stuff at a con? We'll be like, I don't know. We've never sold. We've never sold stuff at a con. Like, we know that you can, and people make livings off of it, because we've talked to people that kind of like told us a bit about it, but it's not something that we have experience enough into to guide you through that process.
Yeah.
So the best thing you could do is reach out to people who do that, reach out to people who that is their livelihood and that is the path that they decided to choose, and ask them those questions. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that you could either meet at cons or poke online,
Yeah.
Would gladly help you out, gladly answer those questions. I mean, at least most artists I talk to tend to be very nice. So they would gladly share the knowledge they've accumulated if that's what you want to do. So, again, nothing wrong with drawing anime. There's a path out there for you if that's what you want to do. And maybe it's something you just do for fun, and then that's it. And then you rather do, I don't know, concept art is your main career path. And then you draw fan art at home for fun. And that's what you do to relax. There's a million different ways to approach it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with starting from anime. I think that's a great place as long as you're passionate and it makes you happy and you love doing it. I think that's a great place to be.
Yeah. 100%. I guess we can talk a bit about how it affected us and also like what we noticed through anime that helped us, but also what could potentially help other people. Like, before I start to study anime and like look at it, and I should definitely study it more. I feel like there's so much more to uncover. What are the things that you pulled from it?
I think when I first originally got influenced by anime, I don't think I was like pulling from it yet. It was more like, wow, this is cool. I love this. This is sick. And I drew pictures of Goku. I think that's usually how that starts in general.
It's just a common storyline.
It's a common storyline.
He has big muscles and Kamehamehas.
Yeah. So I would draw like Vegeta, Goku, Boo, Frieza, all that stuff. But I think later on, like there's, that's the thing, right? So we as designers, like we focus so much on designing and trying to make stuff look really cool and fit, like, let's say a certain set of rules when we talk about stuff like big, medium, small, shape, harmony, and these different kind of design rules. And we tend to kind of reach certain design choices. But I think like anything, if you look at a lot of Western products, whether it be games, movies, and things like that, the kind of stuff we work in, there tends to be kind of like some stuff that, tends to start looking the same, right? Like, we tend to have the same sensibilities. We get influenced by the same games, and designs just start to kind of like fall into the same pot and like the same category of like, oh, that's just like another Star Wars. Oh, that's just another Call of Duty, or that's just another this or another that. But when you look at stuff like some of the games, even not just anime, but some of the games coming out of Japan, like, I don't look at, let's say, a game like Persona 5. I know you don't know what Persona is. I don't know if you've seen that.
I've heard of it.
Yeah, so it's like a JRPG, but essentially I wouldn't look at a game like Persona and be like, wow, I've seen so much of this here in the West. I've seen none of it here in the West. Like, it looks very, very different. Like, it's a very different looking game. Same when you think of something potentially like, Dragon's Dogma. It's like a very unique game. Sure, like dragons and castles are not the most unique thing. We see them a lot, but like, the game experience is very different than the kind of RPGs we create here in the West. So not only from just an anime perspective, in general, the sensibilities, the way games are designed, the way TV shows are made, the styles, the character designs, the weapon designs, there's just different sensibilities and different inspirations because you're kind of, again, a culmination of everything that influenced you growing up. And people who grew up in Japan got influenced by different stuff than us who grew up in Canada, right? So, and because of that, you tend to create and come up with different ideas because of those influences. So I think in general, you're opening up your kind of visual reference library.
So you would say that being exposed to all these different things, like how's that influenced you in your day-to-day, or is there examples that?
Well, I think it just makes me better because it widens my horizon. Like, I'm pulling from different stuff. Like, I'm not just pulling from, I'm not just pulling from the same thing from my designs. Like, I'm thinking of like, like, I guess an example I can give is like, you look at Gundams versus the kind of mechs we design here. Like, if you think of games like, I don't know, like Titanfall or I'm trying to think if we don't have, well, I think we do have many mech games, but I can't think of them off the spot. There's
the one that comes to mind, it's not even, it's Armored Core, but that's even
that's not here.
Even from here.
So there's like Titanfall. I think Mech Warrior is a Western game. But then again, you compare that to Armored Core, you compare that to Gundam, like stuff like that. Again, very different philosophies in how they went about designing
How does that
mechanical
improve your
design.
designs?
Well, it makes me pull from a lot more. Like I'm not just copying the same thing. Now I can get influenced by both Japanese designs and Western designs and like try and make my own things maybe that are look a little bit different, look a little bit new,
Okay.
look fresh that I've not maybe been seen before.
What do you think the, I guess, for lack of the word, Eastern designs have benefited you with? Like, what do you think are the benefits from looking at their stuff? Like, what do you see?
I find they're pretty crazy. They're pretty out there.
What
They
does
tend
that
to
mean?
Well, I mean, I guess an example I can think of that's like really out there is like you think of a character. I don't know if this is my favorite example, but it's an example of something out there. Is like you think of, if anybody's seen the show My Hero, you think of a character like Bakugo who has like explosive
Yeah, just like sweat.
power. Yeah, his gland explode, and it's like, okay, if I were to design, it's like, okay, sweat explodes.
Yeah,
I'd be
explain
thinking,
more detail because some people don't know.
okay,
what that is.
yeah, so this character's sweat is nitroglycerin and
Yeah, like, see-
explodes, right? So like if I were to just, if let's say I got a brief and was like, design this character whose sweat explodes, I'd be like, okay, well, he'd probably have a skin tight suit that traps the heat to make him sweat a lot. And then there would be like areas where like the sweat like comes out. And then like, but then you look at the real design, not at all what I've just explained. There's giant
Interesting.
grenade gauntlets that are around like the, like very on
It's
the nose.
playful. You know, you think there's something very, like when I would see an anime before I saw it, I would
Yeah.
think it's so out, like too much almost. It's like, oh wow, that's way too much.
Yeah.
But then you watch it, and then for some reason, like
It just
the
works.
charm of it
Yeah.
sort of just like starts to grow on you,
Yeah.
and then you're like, this is the best thing ever. And I'm glad
Yeah.
they took the risk. You know?
Yeah, it's crazy because, you know, it has the same kind of structure as a grenade. It has the kind of like the pin with like the thing that shoots up. And so
Yeah.
you can naturally shoot. But then when he wants to do like a really big explosion, like sweat gets accumulated in the giant gauntlets and he pulls the pin and it lifts up and he can do like a giant explosion that he's built up the sweat in the machine. I'm just like,
Yeah.
this is like insane. This is like super cool. So out there, probably not where I would have went if I designed
Yeah.
it, but that's what's so great about it. I wouldn't have went there. Somebody else did go there. And then like that opens my mind that like to different possibilities of design and different directions I can take ideas into, because that's what we need. We need to come up with new stuff,
Yeah.
new ideas. And, you know, there's a whole world out there of influences. You know, you can't just get influenced by like where you come from. You really need to open that up and get influenced by the world that's out there
Yeah,
and different
definitely.
stuff. So what about you? I forgot what the question
Yeah,
was.
me
but
too.
what
I was
about
like, what about me? How has anime influenced me? I would say I do like I like, it may just be a cultural thing, but there's something about the things that are like expected from animes.
you? Mhm.
I like to get into the sort of way the stories are told and the way you know, characters talk to each other. There's something really nice about just knowing that this works. But, you know, if you're, let's say, in a Western studio or something like that, you would completely not think of doing any of those things. There's such a
In what
different...
way?
I just find just the tropes, you know, the tropes of anime. It could be like the themes. It could be like, you know, the shonen kind of...
Yeah.
the way that the character is always getting stronger, and they're so, and they know they're doing it, and it's so obvious, but I
Yeah.
can't get enough of it.
Yeah.
And there's just something so awesome about it. I also like the way they kind of show character development. I like how they this is my particular thing. I don't know why I like this so much, but I like how they show characters like transformations through like flashbacks, and you can see like a character's like wound, and you can see them progressively, like it's very in your face, like how the characters transform. It's not subtle. I like that. I kind of feel like it's kind of cool to see the wound be transformed and the character grow and do the hero's journey the way that they do it. So that's one. I really love just, hey, this is a different way to do stories. I'm like, oh, okay, that's great. Artistically, I mean, maybe we can get into the things that we agree with. Oh yeah, sorry.
Before we get into that, like, how does that like really influence your work? Like, how does that come out in your work?
I don't think it does yet because
think
I'm
it
not
does
really
yet?
writing stories.
Okay.
It's just, for me, it's just like widening my palette of things. It might influence, you know, what I choose to draw, I might, but I would say it's more just influenced me as a person, I would say.
Do you want to talk a bit about how it's influenced what you like to draw? Because you do have a little bit of experience drawing fan art. If you want to maybe
A
talk
little
about
bit. I'm like, I just little.
Dipped your
I dipped
toe.
I was like,
Dipped
ooh, a little bit. You know,
Yeah.
I did one.
Should have brought the poster here.
Oh
to
yeah,
show.
that'd be
That'd been
great.
cool. Yeah.
We'll just put it up
We'll
after
put a picture
or whatever.
of it. Okay. Yeah.
But no, I guess if we can talk about let's jump into it. Like, you know, what can we learn from anime as concept artists or illustrators, you know, or anything? Like, let's say you don't watch anime, or you know, maybe you'd want to learn a bit more. For me, specifically, when I start looking at anime more, it's really about how they design their shapes and how like it influences like the gesture of everything. Like I love how stylized and you know how they style their shapes to match the motion of the animations, especially in like action scenes. You see it so pronounced. Yeah, like how far they push like the stretching of shapes and
the foreshortening and stuff is crazy. It's really exaggerated.
Like they're masters at dynamic shapes. It's crazy. And that is you know, for me particularly, I've always hated my shapes. I've always been like, man, like for me, I feel like more comfortable with like composition and maybe light and color and stuff like that. But as soon as the shapes come in play, I always feel like I'm handicapped. But recently I've been, you know, studying a lot of people that do good shapes, and anime is definitely one of them. And you mentioned I did a fan art, and I did a fan art of Demonslayer. I want to challenge myself, see if I could bring my taste into it and see what I would make. I obviously didn't do it like a traditional anime. I was a bit more painterly, but we'll put it up here in case you want to see it.
Yeah. How was that? How was that kind of like taking another medium, which is very stylized, and taking that and like trying to interpret it into how you paint, which is a little bit more realistic, more painterly? There has to have been like a conversion that goes on in your head, right? Like how does that gonna look?
It's a lot. It's like how do I still, and this is a style thing, developing my style. How do I add what I like about anime into what I already like now? And it's like the recipe, because everyone, you know, your style is your recipe that you're constantly using. Yeah. For me, it's like I had to add shape recipe, and like that was the main thing I focused on this piece is how to style the shape so that when you looked at it, it wasn't just, oh, this is a photoreal of Demon Slayer. I want to be like, no, it's sort of realistic maybe, but not really. Like it still has the I don't like using the word cartoony, but styled look to it. It's a mix. Yeah. That's my taste. And I don't know if I just tried something. Maybe I'll go more styled in the future. I probably will. Like I'm trying to see how far I can push it. But yeah, I would say I learned a shitload about just how you can style a shape and still put realistic lighting and rendering on top. Like you can mix the two. Yeah. Yeah.
It must have been really cool.
I guess, I don't know. Was it cool?
I mean, I don't know the way the piece turned out. I think it looks sick.
Thank you.
So, but yeah, that's something I've kind of like wondered, because I haven't done really any fan art, but that's sorry?
Scoff. No fan art.
Oh, maybe I'll start next week. I'll start.
If you want Nick to do fan art, which I think he should, comment below. Be like, you should do fan art, Nick. So we'll peer press you to do fan art.
Oh, great. Yeah, because that's what I want. More peer pressure. Let's go. But yeah, it's definitely something like hard to be able to like take a style and find like a way to adapt it to another style, because, you know, you look at something and you kind of just automatically, your brain kind of just wants to draw the way it looks. And you got to be like, no, how do I extrapolate the character, the likeness of the character, which has already been like simplified and stylized, and make sure that likeness still portrays in a completely different style, that's difficult to do. And definitely you don't get it overnight, but like it's very impressive to see that kind of like being able to kind of
that's a great challenge. Yeah, like take your favorite anime, and then also maybe take another influence and try to mix them like as an exercise. Super fun, because it forces you to understand both really deeply, so you can play with the building blocks of what makes them work. Super fun exercise. I should probably do that more. So what can getting back to our point, like what do you think concept artists can learn from anime? I said, there's this dynamic gesture. Maybe you can speak more about that. Maybe there's something else that comes up to mind.
Well, I agree with the ones you brought up. Like, I think shape is such a big one. I love, I love looking at the source too, like in manga as well. I'm not going to talk too much about manga, but in general, like seeing where the original designs kind of came from, because I do read a lot of manga. And
yeah, but I'm the bigger anime fan because I'm wearing an anime shirt right now. And you're not getting the shirt I ordered for you, but you paid for it, so. But just saying, everyone. Oh,
yeah, okay.
Nick is not. I'm the superior fan.
Okay. I just want to make it very clear that I'm the superior anime nerd. But
where's your shirt?
I literally read 2 manga chapters this morning while Sean was sleeping. Okay, so if anything, I'm living the life of anime.
Yeah, but I'm representing.
Oh, okay. That's how that works. As long as you represent, you don't have to watch or read anything.
I got haiku drip.
Okay, so I'm just going to go back to the question. But yeah, I agree with you with the shape thing and looking at some of the original designs, the way they stylize stuff in general. Like it's really cool to be able to apply that shape language and try and like learn from it. And also another thing that's really, I think, important with, and this is animation as a medium as a whole. They tend to simplify the designs of the characters because they have to be drawn so much and in motion. And if designs are too complicated, they become more painful to draw because you have to draw them in motion and like tons of different angle. This might be changing with the use of 3D and stuff like that. But I do remember hearing about that and reading about that, where it's like, especially when everything was hand drawn, like if the design is a little bit more simpler and easier to redraw multiple times, it makes it a lot better. So thinking about that, it's like, that's cool. Like simplifying a design. What is the most essential parts you need in a design to make it iconic, to make it striking without just throwing too much stuff on it, Like
that's a huge lesson for us as designers, actually.
Yeah, I think that's like a really good thing to learn, because for them, it's maybe like a technical limitation. Again, like it takes time to draw all of this frame by frame by frame. And obviously that's changing with 3D, but if we're thinking of it from that perspective, like we can learn from that. Like, we don't have to draw 1 million frames, so we can go crazy, and maybe that's not a good thing. Like finding a place to kind of like show restraint and being like, no, the design really works when I keep it this simple. Like I don't need to go too crazy. Yeah. And this works. This makes it like stand out. It makes it iconic. Like I don't need to overdo it. Not everything needs like.
And that's a common, I would say, pitfall that a lot of artists come to it, and especially me when I was I still have this problem. It's like, maybe if I add more stuff, my design will be better. And I don't know about you, but like when I watched One Piece, for example, there's something really sobering. Maybe not. That's not the right word, but sobering. I was just
that's not the word.
I was just yeah. There's something really inspiring. Let's use that word about seeing like such bold designs that really are just exactly what they are.
Yep.
And the artists really just let loose, but they're also extremely polished in the sense that like they're really refined down to their simplest elements.
Yeah, because what's Luffy? Luffy is just a person with.
She's a regular guy with a hat.
Yeah, but that's what makes it work so well, right? Like when you think Luffy and you think straw hat, right? You think that red coat with the scar, and he has the scar on his chest.
Yeah.
And like those like jean short looking things that are kind of ripped up.
Yeah.
And the sandals. That's it. Like it's that simple. There's not like a million patterns like on this.
It's not trying to be badass at all.
Like no, it's super but the thing is that I remember it. Like I remember that design. Like I remember like what Batman looks like. Batman's design is very simple. It's one suit with like an underwear, the cowl and the cape. Like it's that simple, and the boots obviously and stuff, but like it's so simple. They don't overdo it. There's not like a million things, and it's
like what's the simplest elements, and just show those, and everything else you just tone down or remove.
Yeah, and so you don't need a million things to make a design iconic. Like if you have the room to make stuff more detailed, game you're working for is more realistic, or you want something that has more information. There's nothing wrong with that if that's the intent behind it, but that's not, I think, the driving force to making something like amazing or iconic or something. A lot of the times I think that lies in like the simplicity of the design and how easy it is to read and how memorable it is, and it's going to stay with you.
I think the biggest thing I learned from especially One Piece is there's something, this is like I would say just a confidence thing. A lot, like the characters in One Piece don't care what you think about them. Like when you, in the sense of, there's a lot of designs that come out that if they feel safe and they feel like, oh, I've seen this a million times. Oh, this is the bad guy or the, you know, but One Piece is like, nah, none of that. Like they're like, they give you exactly what they think is cool. Yeah. And they're very, I would say, unapologetic, for lack of a better word. They're very blunt about what their character is. Yeah. And it may be jarring at first because you're like, but if you think about it, that's kind of how people are in general. Like you get a person, you may, and they're going to be exactly who they are. They're not going to like, it would be boring if they were just like, oh, this person looks like a villain and they are a villain. It's like, there's something nice about them breaking the expectations and being just bold with it. I feel like that makes more memorable designs.
Yeah,
like,
of course.
So that's something I'm trying to do as a designer. Obviously, should probably still practice it more, but how to just be like, you know what is this design really about? And I'm going to drop the fear of like, oh, it fitting in or being like, I'm just going to go for it. And a lot of the times you get rewarded for that. Maybe sometimes you drop the ball, but I think it's worth it to get that memorable design.
Yeah, I think it is trying to attempt to get it, you know, and you're right. You know, you look at One Piece and some of the designs are a little silly. Like, I mean, if you think about it on
crazy.
Paper, like you think of one of the main characters, Zoro, holding a sword in his mouth and he fights with 3 swords. Like on paper,
it's so iconic though.
Super silly. But like how many characters can you now think of that like fight with a sword in their mouth? Not
and that's
really.
tame. That's a tame design in that series.
But it's like if anybody now were to do that, it's kind of like synonymous with like One Piece. Like they would just be like, oh, they're copying Zoro.
Instant copy.
Because it's so iconic now in that world, you know, and just so you know why he has 3 swords super quick. If you've never read One Piece, he would like fight with swords, if I'm not mistaken, and then he would like have one and he would lose. So he was like, okay, well now I have 2 swords, like I'm gonna be like twice as good. And then he would lose with 2 swords, and he's like, fine, I'll just get more swords. And he put like a 3rd one in his mouth.
Where's the 3rd one gonna go? You know.
And so you fought with like obviously there's more to the story than that, but like in general, if I were to simplify it was something to that effect. And it's like it's really funny, like this idea of somebody's like, I just need more swords and I'm gonna win. It was kind of cool.
It's a really fun idea, and I love the playfulness of it. It's just so, isn't that what we want to do as artists? It's just
we want to have fun,
let out the thing that you think is the most cool thing ever without fear.
Then it creates new ideas, cool, new, exciting moments. Like in the show, there's a whole fighting style for this character that's 3 sword fighting style. You can't have that unless he has 3 swords. So it's like,
where's the other sword going to go? Do you have any ideas?
I've seen that so many times.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. But like, you know, that in itself might have been silly, but it worked. And then that led to new ideas throughout the show to create the 3 sword fighting style. And that like generates new ideas, because now you're like, okay, cool, I need to do this move with 3 swords instead of 2. I can't make the swords like block each other. What is that going to look like? You know, and now you're solving a new problem with a new constraint, which is going to breed a new idea. So, which is a great thing. So being able to be out there and like, maybe not limit yourself so early and just think of like something crazy and silly, it might end up being really cool.
That's what I've learned. It's like pretend like it doesn't matter what people think. Yeah. And if you start there, you tend to like unleash more like less constrained ideas. The picture design is like it's kind of like a playground, you know? It's like if you think about, oh, like this exists and you know it should be like this, or all the constraints that you might think, you know, if this can happen if you care about what people think about your work a lot. And I definitely fall into that category as well. But just letting yourself just be blunt with things and just be like unapologetic about what you're showing people, you widen that playground, I don't know, like 10 times. And that's a way better place to play, I find.
Yeah, 100%.
Starting out your sketching.
Yeah, I agree.
So, maybe you can speak to this.
Oh,
Animation.
Did I
Cool
just
things
speak
you
to it?
learned, concept artists can learn from,
I kind of just said it, didn't I?
maybe we can talk about maybe effects or something, or because
I
maybe
feel
we
like
can
I
dive.
talked about that.
We can dive deep into it, maybe.
Dive deeper into it. I will try
Because
to
we
do
talked
the
about
best of my
we
ability.
talked about shapes, we talked about
Yeah.
design,
Talked a bit about gesture and posing.
but let's talk about maybe effects or movement.
Yeah, so like we roughly
How
touched
this
on
can help
movement.
concept artists.
Yeah, so I
Or
mean, I
illustrators.
did for like the animation stuff. I did say like how like the designs have to be kept a little bit more simple to be able to like draw the character multiple times. So that's like something that is like a great thing to learn. Like we just talked about it now for like the past like
Yeah,
15
true.
minutes about that, but like I guess something else like just from an animation perspective is that how they're showing like facial expressions, mannerism, like the small stuff, like not just like the crazy big movement action stuff, the small things like eating food at a table or like the way they react to stuff. It's like you can't just have like the subtle expressions that we have as people. It's not just like, oh shit, something happened. Like you have to exaggerate the action. Like you have to really kind of push it. It can't be too over the top that it's a little silly and makes no sense. It can be in some scenarios, but if you want it to be like a believable reaction, there's this area where you have to kind of exaggerate it more and take what happens in real life and like really crank it up to like 150
Yeah, they crank it.
160.
That's a good
yeah.
way to say it.
So I think like seeing how they do that to capture these facial expressions of like angry, sad, shock, like all these things. It's like these are things that are hard to do in general. Again, we don't necessarily have to show a lot of emotions in our characters and concept art all the time. Like you might show a facial expression, maybe two. There are some rare cases where you do have to do expression sheet, but I think those are rare. They're usually not the norm from what I know. Again, these are not things like gesture or like dynamic posing that you're doing a lot of. Usually you have a more static face. You're just showing off the design and it kind of ends there with the character and you're showing all the different angles and stuff like that. So it's like, there's so much emotion in the face. Like it's kind of like says so much about a character. So if you can learn a lot more about that, how to kind of like show that expression, show that personality through a facial expression, like it really does elevate your designs. Like if you look at a design with a really good facial expression versus one that's a little bit more static, there's so much personality in the one that has a really cool facial expression. It says more about who the character is, how they behave just in that one image of it.
Yeah.
So I think that's like a really good thing to kind of learn. And then the subtleties of movement, how to kind of show that off, like eating and walking and just the simple things, but make it look interesting and cool.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like, all the effects. I use that a lot in my work, especially the recent stuff I've done is look at how just normal things that you'd maybe do, especially as an environment artist, like maybe smoke or, it could be an effect, an attack like lightning or fire. I love how anime styles it and reimagines how to do it in a very simple way with a lot of gesture. It's like how they mix simplicity with gesture and create such, like, well, for me, it's more my taste, like just such an appeal with their effects. I think if you only look like at a real world reference or maybe just, it could be like one influence of how to do smoke or that kind of stuff. I feel like you're limited because anime, they push, it's like they prioritize the styling, the shapes way more than like everyone else. They're the ones that are like, nope, we're going to prioritize gesture and shape. Like maybe all the other ones you put like, I don't know, like 6 on 10 in your perks for shape and gesture. Yeah. Anime is just like, nah, it's 10. Yeah. So it's like, it's just been so beneficial to always look at like what someone from anime will do. Another thing would be, and this is something I can speak to a lot, is background work, the animation background. We didn't talk about that.
Yes. Yeah. You would be the best to talk about that.
Yeah. I have a bit of experience, not like working it's not like I worked on an actual anime, but I
do have experience doing background for animated shows.
An animated show, yeah.
Here in the West, what show would that be?
Castlevania.
Ooh, which is definitely heavily inspired by, I would say
Oh, yes.
Japanese animation. If anybody's seen Castlevania, by the way, I'm not just saying it because he worked on it. Fantastic show. Like, it's actually really,
I liked it,
really
and I'm
good.
not. I'm no. You know what?
You are
regardless of me working on it, I enjoyed the show a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was good.
Some of the animation
Yeah.
in there was like nuts for some of the fight scenes and stuff. Like, it's really good. There's some
Yeah, it was
fights
really
I
cool.
can think of that I still can't forget. They were really good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, going back to animation backgrounds, a huge influence for us. It was weird because I would say a lot of us had that Western background. A lot of the people on the project were probably influenced by concept art, what concept artists was doing at the time. We all worked digitally too, so that influenced the look. But we also had, like, let's say our right foot in the door of Ghibli and all the other, like the more traditional look. So there's a nice blend that happened, I found, where I was like, okay, this kind of feels a bit like concept art, but it also feels like, a Japanese anime background. There's a nice merge of the two. So yeah, I think it's really also nice to see, all the lovely lighting that we put in and all the nice details and all the painterliness that was captured. And I think it looked really good as, contrasting with the simplicity of the characters and stuff like that. I think there was a nice tone that was created between the two, at least for that show. I don't know what you thought, but I'm biased a little. So
I thought that show was spectacular. I loved it. I thought it was really good.
Awesome.
Why do you think that works so well? So the whole, like, you talked a little about the contrast, but yeah, that's something that's very common. Painted backgrounds that are a lot more detailed than the focal point, which would be the characters, which is less detailed. Because usually you would kind of, no, not always, but you would kind of flip that around. You'd have more information on the focal point than less information on the
100%.
stuff that's not as important. But in this case, it's the reverse. And why do you think that works so well? Like, well, what about that makes it work?
My take on it is maybe it's been a tradition, and it definitely creates a focus. Like, more detail doesn't mean you'll look at it. It's contrast that controls your eye. So difference.
Yeah.
So if you put something very simple on a very complicated background, you'll notice the simple thing. Yeah. Especially if there's like one simple thing and like 10 complicated things, your eye will go to the simple thing. So I think that, mixed with what you said, probably like the making animation simple, it was probably a very efficient strategy to, one, create that contrast so it leads your eye, and also simplify animation. So that would be my instinct to go there. I'm pretty sure there's maybe more reasons. Maybe we can look it up and find more, but that I think works really well. Man, my brain's foggy. What was the question again?
It was a question like why do you think that works?
Why does it
contrast there? But no, I think you brought up a good point.
Yeah,
like,
contrast.
Everything is really detailed. You just look at the simple thing and it kind of pops. Also, too, I would say another thing that works to its advantage is that the sharpness of the line work of the characters contrasts with the softness of like the painterly. So it creates like a more faded kind of look on the environment because of that. So I think like just that in itself helps bring attention to the eye.
It's two different treatments completely. It's weird. I forgot. I remember what I was going to say. It's different. Like a show like Arcane is good. They both work. They just operate in different ways. Like Arcane sort of brings both together.
Yes.
Like they're and it's like one united look.
Yeah.
And anime, there is a sense of unity for sure, but it knows that both is different. And what you said is super true. Like, they have very distinct borders on the characters of like solid ink, really. Yeah. So it really brings that comic feel, if you think about it, which makes sense because it comes from a manga. Yeah. And everything else is just treated like they might add lines sometimes, but overall it's treated like a gouache painting. Yeah. And I think that's what they did for Ghibli. Was it gouache?
I'm not 100% sure.
I think it was gouache. I should know this. I've been doing this enough. I've been interested in Ghibli enough that I should know this, but I think it's gouache. Okay. So it's just like you have a completely different language going on. So it just makes for like a very unique look. It's just super. I mean, now I would say it's in our bones. It's like we associate it with so many different things, even Western stuff too. So it pulls on our heartstrings.
Especially Ghibli movies do pull on our heartstrings.
Exactly.
So yeah, I think you brought up some good points with that. I'm trying to think, is there anything else we want to touch on, or do we want to go to, I guess, I mean, we did talk
Well, we can
about,
talk a bit more about like maybe how to get into the Ghibli-ish backgrounds, that kind of stuff. Because there's a lot of people that are like, that is another gateway into art. Like if you don't, let's say, go through the, I draw
drawing
anime
the
characters.
Yeah.
A lot of people, they love that nostalgic look of a Ghibli background. There's something like, it just hits home, man.
Yeah, there was
so
even
well.
a trend for a while on our station where people were doing that Ghibli backgrounds and like the line work.
It's a never-ending trend, my
characters.
friend.
Yeah, it's never.
It's forever.
That's true.
It's like a genre at this point.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. It's a genre, but yeah, but there was a point, I think, where a bunch of it was like popping up online. People are trying to do it, and it's crazy now because people are not obviously using gouache. If that's the case, they're using these 3D workflows and they're using like these painted textures while mix of painting as well on top of it,
or they just paint it.
Or they just paint it, that too.
Yeah,
but it's crazy. Like people are approaching it in such different ways, yet still trying to get that same result in the end using different workflows. So that's really cool.
And it's such a specific look too. Like,
yeah,
I think understanding that look too will also help you if you want to, let's say, do backgrounds eventually. Like having the understanding of what makes a Ghibli background, for lack of a better word, is super knowledgeable, because they have, I would say, the number one thing that pops up to mind is there's a specific color palette that they really like to use. There's a certain way of rendering everything, and I would probably look at like the gouache backgrounds, I'm assuming it's gouache, of how they would render leaves versus how they would render stone and different materials. There's a certain way they kind of blend realistic lighting with like simplifying things in a certain way. But yeah, it's just that classic blue sky, really green field, which it's weird because if you study other ways of doing environments, a lot of times they're like, don't make the sky super blue and don't make the green super green, because you tend to make like a very like synthetic, almost like highlighter color. It feels like too intense, but for some reason in Ghibli it works. It's just splendid.
Yeah.
It's like, yes, pure blue. And then like pure white clouds and pure green. You're like, that's the stuff.
It just works. It just, it's done in a really tasteful way. And, it's obviously the people that are working on this stuff are really experienced, so they know what they're doing going about it. But it just works super well. So I know we talked about this before, but I think kind of like bringing it full circle. So what can we take away in general to kind of bring it back to that? Like, what can we take away in general from looking at other stuff that's not what we do, right? Because that's basically what we're talking about at this point. We're looking at another piece of media that we don't do, but yet it brings us so much knowledge, so much that we learn from. So again, why is it important that we look at other things outside of our circle?
Well, you don't want to be like this one-dimensional artist. I don't think so, at least.
You don't want to be a one-dimensional artist?
I don't know, unless you want to be. Do you think people want to be a one-dimensional artist?
I mean, I can't speak for other people. I personally don't want to be a one-dimensional artist.
It would be a shame if I was like, nah, it's like, I only like this. And sure, some people do, but for me, it's like, life is just way more interesting when you're like, oh, snap, shapes. And then it sends you on like a rabbit hunt for like the next year.
Yeah.
And you're just, it reimagines the way that you have fun with your medium, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's just really important for like being happy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, for sure. And, like we're talking about one thing, anime here, but the world has so much, whether you're getting influenced by architecture from other countries, whether you're getting influenced by comic books, mangas, whether it's foreign movies, those are really different. 100%. Foreign movies compared to the stuff that's made here in Hollywood. Well, here Hollywood's in the States, but like not the same thing. Like these are not the same kind of movies. They don't get influenced the same. No matter where you're pulling your influences from, it's important to kind of broaden your palette. Look at different stuff, look at art forms, not just looking at a real life from different countries. That's really important, but also looking at different art forms and how artists from different countries kind of like interpret their influences and kind of like what they create through it, because then you're going to learn from them. And, you know, that comes out in the forms of like Japanese animation as one example we were giving. But in general, really widen that palette, look at other stuff. It's going to make you a better artist. It's going to make you a better designer.
Yeah.
And which I think is a net win.
It's a net win.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would say. I think that kind of brings it full circle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True.
Do you want to talk about our
visual portion?
Yeah, our visual portion.
All right, guys, we're switching it up. So for those of you listening to audio, I'm sorry, but we're doing the visual portion, the visual segment of the show,
which we still talk a lot in.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But for you on YouTube, you can watch this. So we brought some treats.
Did we?
I think so.
Like Kit Kats?
For me, it's no. I should probably do that next time. Every time we do a visual segment, we
you say you bring treats.
One person brings treats, and then we're like, oh my God, you brought Hershey Kisses. Oh my God. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're going to pull up some images. Opening up the images right now.
I need to find the folder.
So we decided to, pick our favorite, and I would say anime visually. Like, what's the one that we're like, this looks sick? And we were going to like show what we like about it, discuss it a bit.
Did you already open mine?
I have not. I'm still looking through the folders.
Do you know what I'd pick?
I think so. Okay, so fine. Okay, so we're gonna guess. Okay, we'll do you first. I'm gonna guess what it is.
Okay.
And then I'm gonna see if I get it.
Okay. What's your guess?
Well, I'm still opening.
I already know my guess. I knew my guess this morning.
Yeah. So for you, I think it's the person who, I don't know his name or her name, the person who drew My Hero Academia.
No, actually.
Not?
No.
Okay. Damn it. I thought that you told me once. I was like, I love this.
Yeah, I do love
style.
I do love the designer for Haikyuu. Man, the shapes in that are nuts.
So you picked Haikyuu?
I did not. No, I actually.
But I talked about My Hero.
Oh, My Hero. Sorry, My Hero. No, that I've also actually done studies of the panels in My Hero.
So it's not that artist.
No, it's not.
Okay.
It's actually Akira Toriyama.
Oh, classic. Classic.
Yeah, I went super OG. Obviously, you know, unfortunately,
great pick.
As I think most people know, unfortunately, he passed away recently, and that was like a really sad time. Because you know he influenced so many people artistically. I mean, I think most people that got into anime, at least out here in the West, I would say, and a lot of places around the world, like. I don't think you got into anime without somewhat getting influenced by Akira Toriyama and Dragon Ball. It was just like everywhere on TV. So it was definitely one of the first few things I got influenced by. So, you know, instead of, let's say, picking a specific show, there's so many shows I could have picked out there. Really, like, again, Haikyuu, My Hero, Cowboy Bebop, like Megalobot, like so many shows I could have picked that are gorgeous shows. I thought this would be like a perfect episode to bring up Akira Toriyama and show some of his designs, some of his like illustrations he's done and artworks to kind of see some of the source.
Right.
Yeah.
So which one do you want to talk about?
Talk about like anyone. Let's just go from top to bottom. First image. So like first image, you see like Kid Goku and like riding a dinosaur, and Master Roshi riding a turtle. He's always kind of has some sort of turtle around him, but like in general, like when you look at this work, this is all I think at the time all done traditionally.
Very much so. Yeah.
It's
you can see the grain of the paper.
Yeah, like it's all done traditionally, but again, like there's so much personality in these characters. The shapes are gorgeous. The line work is really beautiful, but the designs are not too overly complicated. Like they work so well, they read really well, and there's just like a good amount of detail for them. And, you know, obviously Master Roshi doesn't look like this in the comics or in the show. This is just like a fun illustration to take these characters and put them in another kind of like outfit for fun. But it just looks super cool. Like he does a really good job designing these characters and creating a lot of personality within them.
100%.
I think.
Do you think this art style is influenced by like it's not as typical of a style for a Japanese artist? I feel like there's some sort of other influence, but I can't put my finger on it.
I mean,
maybe I'm wrong.
I'm sure he had influences. I don't.
I'm wondering what his influences. Yeah,
I'm sure he's talked about his influences in an interview. I'd have to actually look it up. But
I feel like feels like there might be a Western influence, just a little bit. I just can't put my finger on it. I could be wrong.
Yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of artists do get influence, you know, from different places. And I think, you know, I mean, just an example off the top of my head is Cowboy Bebop and the music. Like the music is definitely influenced a bit by like, I think it's like swing and jazz, like when they made the intro to that song. So it's like, you know, these work again, but you're getting something that's mixed with Akira Toriyama's like sensibilities growing up and everything that influenced him, and then the stuff he liked from other places in the world or Western stuff, and that gets brought into his designs because, you know, he's just pulling from everything he likes.
Yeah.
You know, you look at the next few images, you know.
Yeah, these are very clean, man. Like, they're very very tight. Some artists are more loose, especially with their drawings. Yeah. But these are very like final illustration look. Yeah. Clean. Yeah. Especially the one, you know, I don't know if you're looking at this one, the one riding the dinosaur with goggles, like
Goku riding the
that's tight, man.
Yeah, it's really nice. Again, shapes are nice. The outfit design is super cool. You know, he loves, in a lot of stuff that has like goggles, he always does like those big, almost like snowboarding like goggles on the characters. Are super cool. I did pick an image at the back with a vehicle in it. I always thought he does like really cool vehicle designs, like the Capsule Corp shape language. Like, you know, I've seen a lot of people online get influenced by the Capsule Corp kind of brand in Dragon Ball.
What do you think people love about that sort of look? Is it nostalgia only, or do you think there's something about the design that like you can?
I think the designs are really cool. Definitely, I think nostalgia definitely has a place. Like in anything, right? You love something growing up. Nostalgia is going to play a role. I don't want to say it doesn't, but the designs are very simple. Like you look at a lot of the ships and vehicles and stuff like that. There's a nice level of simplicity to the designs, and they're just like, they're very graphic in shapes. I would kind of like compare it to something akin to Star Wars, where like the shapes are very like strong and graphic. You know, it's not like this overly complex spaceship. It's like
a miniature kind of aspect to it.
Yeah, like and it just works so well. Like it works so well with the level of stylization of the characters and everything. Like, and there's obviously like a level of military influence with his designs. Like you can see a little bit with like the kind of the way stuff is bolted and like the side. But like
it's fun. What's fun about it too. Sorry to cut you off, but yeah, it's like even though it's military, the tone of the design. There's something about is whimsical the right word? But there's something playful. It's like lighthearted. It's not trying to be like, I don't know, like a Batmobile with like a million pointy shapes everywhere. Yeah.
It's super playful.
It's very playful, and it speaks. I think it lends well to a big audience. You know, someone who's, let's say, very young can connect with these designs really, really easily.
Yeah, of course. And the show themselves, like especially like when Goku's a kid, tends to be a very playful kind of show. So it works super well with it. So yeah, so in general, you know, I picked Akira Toriyama. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people watching know who he is, but yeah, I thought this was a great episode to kind of like show him off, especially after the recent news. I thought this would have been a good time.
Akira Toriyama.
Yeah, huge influence. I think for
like changed a lot of people's lives.
Yeah, it's a lot of people. So let's look at your stuff. My guess for you is pretty easy.
What is it?
Demonslayer.
Well, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I told you a million. I mean, well, you can tell this story. So you showed me Demonslayer as my gateway drug into gateway drug.
Yeah. No, that's a good way to describe it.
You're like, here's
drug.
A little thing, you know.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fine. Just watch an episode.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, you know, I'm just like, like for the whole like first season, I'm just like, this is so good. Like I can't contain my
you watched like
reactions.
More than one, right? Like at the first time when I asked you to watch one, I think you ended up finishing multiple episodes.
Yes, I watched like 3. I was like, this is great.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's I picked Demonslayer, and we can start maybe with I put sections to it.
Yeah.
Let's look at the character design. So let's just open it up. Start from the top. So be honest, it was really nice to see, like, just, I don't know, man, whatever they're called, kimono, whatever it's called.
I don't know if whatever it's called, or they have a specific name, because I don't think it's the same as a kimono. I think they have a specific name. I'd have to look it up, honestly.
Yeah, I feel sorry for all the people saying, wrong. Damn it, it's not that. And they're like, but anyways, whatever they're wearing, damn, these outfits are
sick,
smashing. They're
And like just off the first image of his name's Gyu, I think.
Gyu, yeah.
And it's like so iconic. Have just one solid color and then the other half a checkered pattern. Like it's a super iconic design. Like, and that's what you like underneath the outfit they wear. Like all these characters, I should stay closer to Mike, but all these characters like
Yes,
wear the same outfit, that kind of like black outfit underneath, but like that kind of coat they have again that on the outside like is so different with each character, and usually like the hairstyle and the eyes tend to be the things that differentiate the most, and it makes such a big difference. Like just the coat being different, like you just right away you see it from far away and you're like, oh, that's Gyu.
yeah,
and you would just know.
Yeah, because like when you see these like very bold patterns, it's a very like eye grabbing thing that you don't see often. So when you do see like this basically like fashion design, like this extravagant fashion design, it really just like gives a lot of punch to their characters. Yeah, if we go to the second image, it's like, man, like I love the shape design. Like I love, like you can see, you know, the big kind of tapered triangular shapes of the coat, the styled shadow shapes. I love their sensibility for their shapes. It's so fun, mixed with you know, the graphic patterns. There's something really, really nice about it. Some animes, their shapes are like, you know, they'll have a specific way of designing shapes, but I find Demonslayer has like the Lamborghini of shapes for some reason. I find they're just so elegant, and they're a bit more aggressive than a lot of other shapes I've seen. So super, super cool. Here's another, if we go to the third one, here's another character sheet done of
it's
Rengoku.
very on the nose, you know, the Hashira flames, and it's like, you know, it's not subtle. It's not like the outfit's a little bit red, you know. It's they're like, no, his hair looks like it's on fire. His coat is on fire.
He's the fire guy.
His legs are on fire, and it's like they go in the opposite direction. Like it's so on the nose with some characters, but again, the outfit is cranked over 100 and the personality of the character is very fiery in the show. Everything is just cranked to over 100, and for some reason it just works so well. In those moments, having those kind of almost caricatures of like a personality trait, and it works super well.
Definitely. It's super cool. Rengoku, I love just, it's just so cool just seeing a design come to life, because I feel like it's just the elegance of the way it's done. I think some animes will be a bit more bold, like One Piece. They'll put some wacky stuff on the screen, but I think it's just the elegance of it is just so well done. Even Tanjiro, it's just checkered green. It's just especially with like the green plus the hair and the scar shape and the stylization of all of that stuff. Like, I think it's great. It tingles my shape my shape senses. So I guess we can talk also about, let's go to effects actually.
Yes.
The effects,
second
man.
One. That second one. Oof.
The one with the fire?
Yeah, the pink fire is really nice.
Pink fire, yeah, the blood art.
Yeah, man. Explosive blood mixed with that was cool. That was a cool moment. And like, again, you look at this and it's like, it's just the shapes. Look at the white shapes inside the pink. Like they're so nice. Like they work so well. It's not just the same exact thing repeated a million times. Like it has these like really strong, like, you know, smaller shapes, bigger shapes that are like really graphic and aggressive and in your face. And it just works like so well, you know, for something like this.
Yeah, it's the trademark of the show. It's like you picture super cool outfits. Yeah. Obviously like samurai swords and stuff like that. Yeah. You know, and then you have like
they're really called katanas, man.
Really bold, very simplified 2D like effects. They're very flat in treatment. Yeah. And the way they compose them with the motion of the attacks is just like, it's like watching it's weird. It's because like it's almost like it becomes like a different reality whenever like they go like, it's like fire breathing, and then like you see like trail of fire. Just it's like almost like a pattern. You know, it's not like it doesn't blend with the background well, but that's the point. Yeah. And it's just such an iconic look. That
Yeah.
I think is really, really awesome. I think the next one, where there's fire, actually
The water one is really
the
good.
water one too.
Yeah.
You can see the different treatment of
Yeah.
how it is more, I guess, simple in nature versus the treatment of the character.
Yep.
The swing of the sword, this one, that one I think captures it a lot. You can kind of see like, okay, like how much detail the background has versus, you know, how the character's rendered, and then you have just like really simplified, like graphic treatment of the flames. And it's crazy how they added such thick chunks of ink, like black ink, in these effects. I was first like, oh, that's very, very bold, very in your face.
Yeah.
But the more I watch it, I'm just like, yeah, it's like it hits
Works
the mark.
super well.
Yeah. So Demon Slayer is pretty awesome.
That's a really good pick. I knew you were going to pick it, but it's a good pick.
Yeah, you know me.
So, you know, I guess a fun little thing to kind of end it off on would be, what animes are you watching now?
What animes I'm watching now?
Yeah.
I'm trying to finish One Piece.
You're trying to. I don't think it's possible to finish One Piece.
It's like more of like a lifestyle.
You kind of just die, and then it's going to continue on. Anyway.
People make fun of me whenever I tell them. They're like, "Why do you hate yourself so much?" I'm like, I don't know.
It's great. Are you watching anything else besides One Piece?
Yeah, I keep up to date with. I stopped Naruto for a bit. I'm playing catch up, by the way, guys. So if I say like the most basic animes, it's because I want like there's a reason why they're good, and they are good. So I want to actually watch them. But I was watching Naruto for a bit. Obviously, I'm up to date with like Jujutsu Kaisen is definitely up there.
Yeah. You watching the new season of Demon Slayer?
Yeah, I'm watching. I'm up to date.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so for me, those are like my go-tos. There's a few others, but those are the best ones. What about you?
Nice. I'm watching Demon Slayer. I'm watching, this one's on Netflix. I'm not watching it on Crunchyroll, but I think it's called Delicious in Dungeon.
I've heard of that one.
So much fun. Yeah,
that one looks funny.
It's really, really funny. It's a blast to watch.
What's it about? It's a cool theme.
It's basically these like party members. One of them, like basically one of the party members is missing, got eaten by a dragon. So they have to go back to the dungeon before hopefully the dragon digests the party member to kind of like save them. And it's like the sister of one of the characters. But the whole kind of that is one of the like main points of the show. But like really the point of them is like, one of the main characters is like really like wants to try eating dungeon monsters, and it's considered very taboo and weird to like, you bring your food down with you into the dungeon. You don't eat the monsters. Like that's just weird. You know what I mean? Like you don't eat ghouls and sand golems and like, that kind of stuff. Like it's weird. But he has this whole like recipe book on how to like what parts of the different monsters you can eat. Like every episode, they're making new recipes from the monsters of the dungeon. It's hilarious. It's so much fun.
Like dungeons plus cooking.
Yeah, basically it's dungeon cooking show. It's
combination.
Animation's great for it, but I've been watching. That.
It looks beautiful, by the way.
Yeah, it's gorgeous.
There's a very, I don't know what it's influenced by, but it feels also nostalgic in some way. Like they're definitely pulling on something.
Yeah, it's very well done.
It's really, really nice.
Yeah, so those I would say are the big two I'm watching. I already finished. This one's not Japanese, but I finished Solo Leveling, which was pretty good. I had already read the manhwa for it, but I had watched Solo Leveling, which is a Korean
one. Okay.
Yeah, it's based on a Korean comic, which are called manhwas. So yeah,
nice.
So it's pretty good.
Very cool.
It's power fantasy. It was pretty fun to watch. Yeah, but yeah, Delicious in Dungeon is fantastic, hilarious.
I'll have to give that one a taste.
Awesome. Well, I think that makes it. That's our episode. And honestly, I know we talked about a lot of things, but please let us know. Like if you got influenced by anime stuff, like please let us know what animes you got influenced by and how that kind of comes out in your work. And also let us know what you're watching right now. Give us some recommendation of things maybe we haven't seen and we can take a look at, because we want to broaden our horizons and get influence from a lot of stuff. And we'll see you on the next episode.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. All right.
Bye.
Cheers.